why playing games like Warcraft is good for being a successful property investor. Now, in property investing, it all boils down to lots and lots of planning and research, as well as coming up with strategies for the different types of units and properties that you are actually looking at. Right? So similarly, in a game, the most important thing is to actually develop a certain strategy to beat your opponent. Alright, you don't just go head in and try to beat him without any plans or any homework being done of what kind of resources your opponent has, or what kind of units you're going to have to beat or go head against. So similarly in property, this is exactly what it's like. Every single development is like a new mission. I treat every single new unit that I'm looking to invest in like a campaign mission. So with that being said, every property has its own profile and characteristics, which means it also requires a different entry, plan and exit strategy as well, right? So for example, a leasehold property and a freehold property. I'm sure most of us are familiar with these two types of property, right? It can be for capital gain, it can also be for rental play, or it can be a hybrid of both, capital gain and also rental play, right? So how do I determine such things? Well, some of my clients actually shared with me that, they only want a freehold property, right? But why? Is leasehold any less attractive? I've actually bought a new launch leasehold property back in March 2017, right? For those of you who have been following me, right? And this property has actually appreciated about 22% in value in the last 18 months. So similarly, I've also bought a resale freehold property in a boutique development in District 8, which has also increased in value, right? So it really depends on what is your strategy when it comes down to looking at the different types of property that you're going to invest in. Okay, there are actually many others who have the concept that a freehold property will actually retain its value, but a leasehold will lose value over time. Well, I agree that is true because for a fact that freehold land has a lease in perpetuity, meaning it's forever, right? Unless the government decides to acquire the land, then that's a different story altogether, right? But we're not going there today, so we're just going to talk about freehold and leasehold here, right? So, but if you think about it, even if you have a freehold property, but you're not planning to keep it for the longest of time, probably you're going to invest maybe for just 4 to 5 years or 6 to 7 years, and then you decide to move on to another property, then it doesn't really matter, does it, whether it's freehold or leasehold, as long as it achieves its objectives. Now, the second thing that I want to talk about is to actually be prepared for any opportunity to strike. Right, similar like if in a war game, do you only wait till your opponents actually launch an attack on you before you start preparing your defenses? Or do you keep a lookout, to scout your enemy and know what's he doing, how much resources he have, how much army units, how big is his army, and things like that, right? And you will probably be also looking for an entry point, like where is his weak area to actually launch an attack. Right, so similar in property, right? Just like in July of 2018, when the government released cooling measures, some people saw this as a bad thing, whereas some people had actually struck when the iron is hot. Meaning to say, after the July of 2018, the market slowed down, and what happened was a lot of developers actually gave rebates and discounts of up to 7%, right? 5 to 7%. And one of my favorite quotes from Warren Buffett: to be fearful when others are greedy, and to be greedy when others are fearful. So this belief actually allowed me to buy a property in District 19, a new launch property, that actually made potential paper gains of 5 to 7%. Right? Because when I bought this property, I paid 5 to 7% less than people who bought it in the earlier stage in June of 2018. Right? Why could I do this? Simple. It was because I was ready to take action and I knew what my numbers were. Right? So when the developers dropped the prices to attract buyers, I went in and actually bought this property. Right, so just to sum up today's videos, right? So basically two things. One is to always be ready when the opportunity comes, right? Be ready to strike. Make sure you've done your homework and be prepared. The second thing is to actually come up with a plan or strategy when you actually buy a property, or even before you buy a property. Know what your exit strategy is, right? And go along with it. Right, so just two things, right? If you guys have any other questions, do drop me a comment below. And if you found this video useful, do give me a like or share this with your friends and family. Right, Mark here, Property Growth Strategist, and I'll see you soon.